Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO44 coming at you with another video. All right, so it's watching highlights of Kyrie Irving, preparing myself for what I hope is the start of a new chapter for the Lakers at the point guard position. But of course, you can't watch his highlights without asking yourself, you know, did the Brooklyn Nets make the right decision in not paying him his money? Because if you remove all of what you understand about him not being available to the team and all of the other stuff that's being spoken about, and you just watch highlights, it's hard to convince yourself that he's not somebody you should be paying for 5 years going forward. It's hard to do that. I watched highlights of him against the Orlando Magic 3 months ago. Had 60 points. Now, mind you, this also segued me to a different point for my Lakers. One of the reasons why he was able to get 60 points 3 months ago, I think, is because he had fresh legs. Why did he have fresh legs? Because of the situation. What I know about Kyrie Irving, and besides the fact that he's an amazing basketball player, is that he's had a lot of injury issues over the years, particularly broken bones early on. Broken this, broken that, broken this. And so, for me, though this is an unspoken thought, it is something that's crossed my mind more than once. I think him not playing so much basketball this last year is probably good for his body. And him taking the times off in the middle of the season when he did is probably good for his body. I don't think Kyrie Irving should probably, any athlete really, but some athletes probably shouldn't be playing 82 games a season. Now, granted, you're signing up for that. You're paying them to play 82 games a season, and I respect that. But also, it's not about just playing 82 games. It's about effectively helping the team accomplish its goal. You know what I mean? You can get caught up in the idea of, yes, we pay you to play 82. But if playing 82 means tiring yourself out so you can't get to the end of your contract, then maybe I need to trim that down to 69 and be very pleased with that, right? Or trim that down to 60, and maybe that's what's best for you as for your physical nature. I think there's something to be said for that. I think the Lakers should think about that as they acquire Kyrie Irving. I don't think we have to look too far. I think guys like Scottie Pippen. If we keep Kendrick Nunn, I don't know if Kendrick Nunn will be here. Obviously Walker, Bron, all those guys can play the point guard position, but I do want us to consider how to preserve the body of Kyrie Irving and, of course, Anthony Davis as well. Now, I think we've done a good job of preserving Anthony Davis, particularly by grabbing so many bigs this year. Now, I know we're trying to figure out who to keep because obviously we're going to have to give up somebody in trade. It looks like Wenyen Gabriel might have to find himself elsewhere, unfortunately, which is something I'm not too thrilled about if it comes down to that. But the point is we have enough power forwards to make us feel good about that position. The point guard position, I think we're filling in with other guys who can play the position but aren't exactly point guards. And I think the smart way to build is to understand what has worked for Kyrie and also what hasn't worked in terms of durability for him and the injuries that he's had and things of that nature, and what will keep him fresh for June and May and March and where we're trying to get to. So that's what I'm thinking about. It's like, yeah, everybody's complaining, but Kyrie didn't play, he didn't come to work. And I'm like, is anybody stopping and realizing that this is probably a good thing? Because if he would have played all them games, he probably got hurt at some point in time based on the history. Like, those are things that I think about. And if I were in the Brooklyn organization, I also would have been thinking about to a degree. Yes, him not being there made it so that what you had didn't work. But if you were strategizing properly, like truly properly, you would have had enough depth to prepare for those games being missed anyway, even if those weren't necessarily choices that he made, but more so injuries instead. You still should have been prepared for that amount of games being missed, because that's what's best for him overall, in my opinion, based on the injury history. I think AD is to be considered that way too. We should manage them differently. I think we should manage them with the intent of trying to preserve them throughout the season. I know that people don't believe in load management and all that, and they don't want to take the Kawhi route. That's too much rest, in my opinion. But I think that we should find a sweet medium for our stars because the guys we do have injury history at this point, and they are over 30. So we need to be real about that. Well, AD's not, but he's approaching it. So this is something I've been thinking about. Kyrie was able to score 60 points on a road game against the Orlando Magic, and I think he was fresh as heck for that game because of all the games missed. And I think if we continue to keep that in mind and not get so angry at the idea of him not being available, because at the end of the day, as long as he's available for the playoffs at his best, that is when we can get the most out of him. You ask him to be an Iron Man, and he may not make it through the season. So that is something I'm thinking about. Plenty of backup, plenty of insurance. With LeBron James, it's the exact same thing, unfortunately. But again, we have the bigs, so that's going to have to be enough. We can't, we're not building a perfect team. It's not possible. But what you can do is give yourself as much insurance as possible. And I think keeping in mind Kyrie's injury history and just overall preservation of him is something that we should strategize into our building process. So that's what I'm seeing, man. I was enjoying those highlights. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those situations where it's like you really scratch your head at what's going on in Brooklyn, how things got this bad. I just look at the talent that they had and the circumstance they were in, and I would have understood, looking at everything they had, that they didn't have no damn choice but to pay Kyrie Irving and KD. They didn't have one based on how things were set up in their organization and what they were capable of doing in regards to a rebuild. They're not prepared for a rebuild. That's where they've also gone wrong. They're going to have to work on whatever they need to do to put themselves in an advantageous position to be able to start over. That's what I've learned. And so, lesson learned. I think that's also the thing. When you pick your team to play for, it's got to be about more than just locale and colors. You gotta be aware of what we're capable of doing to help you. You know what I mean? And the Nets were not able to help these guys, even if they chose to be more lenient with them. You could clearly see they're not putting together nothing, as I've said a million times. I think now at this point you just hope that the Lakers can come to a conclusion that, not the Lakers, but the Nets can come to a conclusion that sending Kyrie to the Lakers is ultimately what's best for him. Because I think that situation soured there. Looking at the talent that he possesses, he needs to be in a situation like the one we have, where we need scoring and basically someone who can get their own shot, space the floor just fine, take pressure off our stars, control the momentum entirely, control pace, control the entire game to a degree. And what I mean by that is, when just like Russell Westbrook in a way, but Westbrook unfortunately wasn't able to harness it in a positive way for us, but Kyrie controls momentum. Whatever he's doing, he's going to capture that space that keeps the people attentive, keeps your mind focused on you, focused on the game. That is what he does. He captures you in the moment. And so as he does that, that should create opportunities for guys like Bron to roam and kind of have a little less attention on them. Because if Kyrie's doing his thing and everybody's focused on Reed, guess who they're not focused on? Everybody else. Or for example, if they're focused on Bron, they're leaving Reed open, not very wise. And so these are the type of things that you could just see will work in our favor, just as it worked in Cleveland's favor. Even though these guys are older, the dynamic's still the same, and the way they play right now, when we last saw them, they could still do it. They could still do the same things they did. As someone else said in the comment section of the video I was watching, there's not a defense alive that can stop the artistry of that man in regards to Kyrie Irving. They're like, when he gets into his dribble packages and starts controlling his steps and where he's going to be and starts basically teleporting all over the place, because that's what it looks like to me. I mean, he's teleporting. It's not even just step backs. Like, he's literally creating opportunities to be open where there isn't any, based on his genius. And so when you understand that, he's doing stuff out there. Like, if it were 7-on-5, he would still be able to get his shot off. He would still be able to get to the lane based on how advanced his dribbles and his footwork is. And so, like, if he were 7 foot tall, he would arguably be the greatest player to ever play, based on what he's able to do with a basketball. You know, it's one of those situations where it's like, the Nets, based on what I understand of his game, you almost feel like it's okay to swallow the pill. You know what I mean? In terms of paying him. Because you got to understand, the worst thing he's going to do is be absent for some games, whether it be injury or choices. Okay, that's horrible, right? That's really, really bad. And do you know who else has that issue? Every injury-prone player in the league, essentially. So yes, that bothers you, but when you consider talent and what you think a guy's going to be able to do as they age, I look at some of the guys who are getting paid right now. They're not going to age as well as Kai, y'all. They're not, especially some of these guys who are leapers and their game is predicated on athleticism. Guys who can't shoot, who don't have really good fundamentals. They're not going to be able to continue to dominate the league if that athleticism wanes. Based on his footwork and the way that he's able to carve teams up ambidextrously and get to the line and be efficient and stuff like that. As I've said once before, I think he could be a globetrotter at 50 years of age if he truly wants to be. I don't think anything would stop him from doing that except for bad knees, honestly. You know what I mean? He can just do stuff that you cannot teach. Just like our guy King James. You know what I mean? Some people are just touched. And so, you know, when you understand this, it's like, you gotta respect the talent level. And I think that's what KD is offended by in a way too. Just looking at the situation, it's like, yes, I'm asking you to pay my boy, but with all due respect, and I'm gonna say a name, it's not like I'm asking you to pay Tristan Thompson. Big respect, because I know that's y'all dog. Everybody, you know, they all dogs from Cleveland, but like, it's a different energy when you know the guy is crazy gifted and talented. It's not like I'm asking you to just tag along somebody who's going to just help us win. This is somebody who's going to help you get money too. And so when you're the Brooklyn Nets and you see what he can do for you in that way, and the only thing that's really bothering you is something that happened specifically in a season that you know ain't never going to happen again. Like the vaccine situation, that can't be duplicated. We're not going to see that. So if you're judging what you're going to be dealing with going forward, like, are you anticipating something like that maybe happening again? And it seemed to me, in listening to conversations, it's like they were trying to position themselves to whereas if something like that were to occur again, they could force him to take the vaccine. And I'm like, is it that worth it? Like, to cost yourself this kind of talent to let him walk out the door, and then when you see how much trouble it's caused you, it's like, damn, is it worth it? Is it that serious to control this man and how he handles his body during the season time? Like, yes, it's important, but is it that important? That's all I'm saying. Like, is there a limit to this? is there too far? Because to me, it seems like they're blowing up their situation unnecessarily. You know, like, honestly, without a good plan in place to rebuild. And see, that's why my opinion has morphed into something different since this situation has began. Because in the beginning, I'm like, yeah, the Nets need to be rid of these guys because they're a headache and blah, blah, blah. But then, like, in my mind, I'm coming up with plans of how they can fix the situation. And then you do this, and this. And now I'm seeing how they're working. It's like, nah, they didn't have that in their head. They're just done with something. And then they're going to figure it out as they go along. And that's what happens. You find out what you run into it doesn't work that way. And then you start realizing what I'm sitting here realizing, which is it probably was cheaper to keep them. Keep it to keep them. And I don't think they want to come home now. I think it's too late for that. I think you done insulted these dudes and made them feel embarrassed about their situation, got them up here trying to, you know, engage in having power about situations that it seems like they don't have a whole lot of power. They're embarrassed at this point. I know KD is. They don't want to come back to Brooklyn. And not only that, but last time they were on the court, they got embarrassed by the Celtics. Like, it's time to move on from that situation if you're them, I believe. But Brooklyn, with all due respect, buddies, that's y'all fault. Y'all should have put better talent around those guys, man. It's talent evaluation time. Those back of the bench players should have been way more talented. You should have had way more upside in your situation, is what I would say. Way more upside. You know, I knew something was wrong when you traded us Kyle Kuzma that draft night. I'm like, how do we get that pick? How are they? They're still giving up picks. Like, these are the type of things that you can just understand. Even back then, the Brooklyn Nets have been doing these things, and so it all led up to this. They can blame those two guys if they want. Oh, they weren't here, so we suck. No, you suck because you didn't have enough talent. Don't let anybody lie to you about why the Brooklyn Nets weren't any good. They weren't any good because they didn't have enough talent. Because they mortgaged all their talent, is, as we've said a million times this week. And now they want other people to send them that talent so that they can get better. And I would just, let them know that wasn't possible. I said it then, and now we're seeing it. That no one's doing that. You're truly seeing the value of young players. It wasn't visible. I could see it. I told y'all there wasn't going to be no way they were going to give up young players. But, the NBA needed to see something like this actually happen in order to know the value of these young players. They needed to see it. I don't know. Certain things are just evident to me, to be honest with you. Just seeing how the tea leaves show me certain things. It's like, I know lengthy, long players should not ever be let go of in this era. I know that. Just like shooters needed to be overpaid in the last eras. Some stuff is just understood. And that is why it's important to have people in place that understand these things just the same, who have a feel for these type of things. So you don't end up mortgaging your future for somebody or thinking you could trade somebody that's untradeable. Like, literally untradeable. So anyway, man, I just wanted to give you guys a little content. I'm rambling, but all in all, excited about my team, man. I don't know what's going on in Brooklyn. That Kyrie situation has been on my mind, obviously, the most. But, looking at that KD situation, Kyrie / Brooklyn, it's all just, it's unnecessarily bad. It didn't have to be this bad. And they've made a lot of mistakes that led into the situation. And the question is, are they going to learn from those mistakes? Or are they going to keep on doing things the same way and getting the same results? Mm-hmm. But if I'm Ben Simmons, I'm taking serious notes on their franchise. Taking notes. As I'm watching and I'm seeing if they're going to do right by me or if they're going to continue to spite and kick the can down the road in regards to KD and Kyrie. Because now you got to shift your attention to the player that you are trying to build around. And if you don't start giving him what he needs, you're going to look up, he's going to be gone too when his value raises up. He's going to leave y'all just like those other two did. And so, for him, I think he's in a good spot as long as they build around him. But if they are not going to build around him, I would tell them to move on from him now. Don't keep him if you're not going to focus on him. Because if you're not going to keep him, you fully understand that he's a snag in everything that you're trying to do in regards to KD. Like, if he wasn't on the team, you could make all kinds of moves. So if you're not building around Ben Simmons, it would absolutely behoove you to have already traded him. Never mind letting it get to this point where we tell you to trade him. He should have already been on a flight somewhere else. And I really hope that's common sense to them. I really hope that's common sense. Anyway, that is all I have to say. I thank you all for allowing me to continue to talk about the Nets. My name is BDF44. I thank you all for watching.